Here's how to use CapCut for PC and Mac in this complete step-by-step CapCut video editing tutorial. And as we go through, let me know down in the comments, what is your biggest tip for new users of CapCut? It could be something from this video or something you've picked up from playing around yourself. Okay, so this is what you'll see when you first open up CapCut. Now I'm showing you this on a Mac, but it's gonna be exactly the same if you're on PC as well. So on this screen, you can access your previous editing projects down here. You can sign in if you have a CapCut account. Now you don't need one, I don't have one, but that's where you can sign in. And you've got the Start Creating button up here to start a new project. Now, if we come up to the top right-hand corner here and click on this little button here, come down to Settings, which we can also access up the top here under CapCut and down to Settings. In here, we can set up our project defaults, so where our project is going to go. So we can change this location by pressing the little folder here. I'm just gonna leave it where it is. We can also clear out our project cache here as well. So if we do have a bunch of projects in here that are taking up a lot of hard drive space, you can clear that out here once those edits are done. Come over here to edit. This is where we can set some defaults like our image duration. So if we're gonna bring in any still photos and things, how long they're gonna default to displaying on screen. You can also set your video frame rate down here as well. The footage I am gonna be using for this tutorial is 25 frames per second. So I'm gonna switch this so that it matches. Up here under performance, if you are using really large files or you're using a lower powered computer, then you can enable proxy mode here, which is going to make it easier for you to edit those files. And the last one up here is where you can specify the app language. It should be all good to go by default. I'm going to hit save on this to apply those settings. We're going to choose Start Creating. And then we're taken to our main CapCut editing interface. So we can access all our media, audio, text, and everything all up the top here. And whichever one of these we have selected, we can see the settings and everything for that down in this section. The next one across here is the video player. This is where we can play back our editing masterpiece. We've got extra details and settings and things that will show up the top corner here. Now, if we do want to make changes to our project settings, we can do that in here. We can see the default resolution here is adapted, meaning it's going to be set from the first video clip that we import, but we can also manually set that here too. So if we come down here to modify, we can actually manually change the resolution here to customized, and we can set the resolution. So we've got here 1920 by 1080. So we've got a 1080p project. We can also adjust the color space here as well. If you are going to be, say, using HDR footage, then you can set that here. But for most people, you should just be able to leave this as adapted, and that should be good to go. Down the bottom here is your video editing timeline. This is where we will actually be editing. Now we'll run through these tools up here as we go through, but these are all to change up your editing experience. If we come over to this side, this is where you've got your undo and redo buttons, but you can also switch your editing mode up here as well, from just having a cursor to click and select on clips to having a blade to be able to split clips. But that is the overall interface. So we're gonna go ahead now and we're going to import some footage. So we can either click on the button here, making sure that we have media selected, or we can drag and drop our clips into this window. So I'm gonna pick our 3 footage files here, and we can see that's brought those straight in. Now to add these down into our timeline, we can just click and drag them down as you would with most editing tools. But if we do want to preview them first, we can double click on the clips and they'll start to play over here. So I'm gonna bring down clip number 2, and let's bring in clip number 3 afterwards. So what we have here is our primary video footage. It just happened to be, in this case, split over 3 different clips. So now that we have some footage in the timeline here, we can now change the aspect ratio of this video if we need to. So we can see here where we've set it to original, which is the same as the clips here that we've imported. But if we do click on this, then we can choose a different aspect ratio too. So if you do want to create a 9:16 video for Instagram stories or YouTube shorts, then you can set that here and it's going to get the sizing and everything right for you. I'm going to leave this back here at original. But up the top here as well, under this little menu, we can turn on some advanced color settings here so we can see all of our scopes. We can adjust the preview quality here, or the playback quality. So again, if your computer is struggling here, you could set it to performance priority, and it's going to optimize things to make it better for you. And if you just want to export out a still photo or an image of whatever it is that you're editing at that point, then you can do that from here too. So the first step, once you've got your primary footage in, is to go through, remove all the bad takes, all the mistakes, until you're just left with the stuff that you actually want to use. So I'm going to come back to the start of our clip here, make sure we're back to the start. We can either zoom in using this slider, or you can use the Control or Command plus and minus keys on the keyboard, so we can zoom in and see more detail. Now you can see underneath the image here, we have our audio waveforms. This is the visual representation of the audio or the sound in the video. So we can see at the start here, there is nothing happening. And then at this point here where we start to see the audio coming through, that's where I start talking. So we'll want to make sure that our video starts at this point. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. I'm going to run through those so that you can see what options you have, because in some cases it'll make sense to use some of these methods over others. So I'm going to select this clip. I'm going to come back across to the left side of the clip and you can see the mouse cursor changes. If I click and drag this back to the right until just before I start talking there and let it go, then that is now the start point for our video. We've now trimmed that clip back to that point. So if I hit play now, that's the start of the video. Likewise, if we go all the way across here to the end of our video, we can start to trim off the end of it. If we click and drag on this white line, this playback head here, then we can scrub through our footage. So we don't need to play through it, we can speed through it, but we can see at this point here, it's the end of the video, we finished talking, that's where we're gonna want to finish it. So I could just come and grab the end of the clip and slide it back, or I can press B on the keyboard to switch to our split mode or blade mode, which we can also select up here. And then I just click on the timeline at that point, and that has now cut our clip in two. So you can quickly switch between these two modes by pressing A and B on the keyboard. So if I select this second clip here now, this piece that we don't want, and press delete on the keyboard, then it's gone ahead and removed that for us. Now, if we're looking back into this a little bit, we can see that there is a gap here where I'm not talking. So I'm clearly between takes, or I'm starting to say something again, and we're gonna wanna remove that. So we wanna find the place where we want to split our timeline. We can press B on the keyboard to switch over to blade, and then we can click on that clip and it will split it. Or without switching to blade mode, if we click on the clip and select it, and we press on Mac Command B or Windows Control B, then that's going to cut our timeline at that point. So we don't need to keep switching between blade mode and select mode. We can use the keyboard shortcuts to really help speed things up. And then from there, we can grab this clip, we can come to the end of it, we can slide this back to close up that gap, and that section has now been removed. So the idea now is to go through, remove any bad takes, any mistakes, anything you don't want to have in your finished video, so that we're left with just the good stuff, the story or the content. Now with any of these clips, you can click on them, you can pick them up, you can move them around to change the order of them, all to help you build out that story. But once that's done, the next step is to bring in any B-roll or overlay footage into your project and into your timeline. So I'm going to come back up the top here, make sure media is selected. We're going to choose import. I'm going to navigate through, find my B-roll footage. So I've got 3 clips here. I'm going to select the first one and bring it down into the timeline. But instead of just dropping it at the end, I'm going to drop it on top of the video footage. And that's now created us automatically a new video layer. So you see, if we scrub through here now, there's me talking. I'm still talking underneath, but now this clip is playing over the top. And we've got access to those exact same editing tools for these clips as well. So let's say that we wanted this shot to start about here. We can grab this end, drag it back. Let's hit play on that. And so we want it to stop here. We can select it, Command B, and we have cut it at that point. Now let's say that we want the last part of this clip as well, where we are zooming back out, say from here until about there. And now we can pick up these clips and move them to where we want them. So go ahead in this step and add in all of your B-roll, your graphics, your overlay footage into your project. So in our timeline now, we've got one timeline layer for our primary footage, one for our B-roll or overlay. And for each one of these layers, we actually have some controls. So we can mute all the clips on a particular layer by using the button here. We can disable the clips to hide them using the next one, or we can lock them. So if we don't want any movement or adjustment to happen, we can lock them so that they're saved in that state. Now, because some of these clips here do have audio associated with them, I can just go ahead and mute all of those clips with one click by pressing this here. So those shots are seen, but we're not going to hear the sound from them. But don't worry, we'll get to audio adjustment and everything really soon. From here, we want to add in any text or titles into our video. So if we come up the top here to text, we've got our default text here that we can use, or if we come down here under text templates, there's a lot of different preset templates that you can use. And some of these look pretty good. You can see they'll preview if you put your mouse over them. So there's an animated subscribe button. There is a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe again with the bell notification. So if I click on that again, this is what that looks like. So pretty amazing that you have a lot of this stuff here built in that you can literally just drag and drop onto your projects. Now, while there is a lot in here and you can customize them up, my favorite place to go for titles and animations and stuff like this is Video Hive. And I'll have a link to that down in the description below. So let's say that we wanted to drop this in. I pick it up, I can drag it down to where I want it. Just like our other clips, we can stretch it out, or we could make it smaller. We can pick it up, we can move it around, and we can even customize up the text here. You can see with this selected, we can actually double click on the text here. It opens up the top here. Maybe we put an exclamation mark after it. And there's also then a bunch of options in here to customize this up further, change the colors, and really customize this up for your brand. With it selected, we can also click on it, we can pick it up, we can move it around, we could scale it down so that it's not so big. Let's put it down in the bottom corner here. We've now got a subscribe button now at that point in the video that animates on and then disappears. So there's some really cool stuff that's built in here, and they're always adding new stuff all the time. Let's come over here to title. I'm just gonna grab some fairly basic text here, but it is animated. Let's click on it. Let's drag it down into our timeline near the start. And let's make this a name card. So I double click on it. We can see we've got the text up here. Let's go Justin Brown. Let's change the font to Oswald. So our Primal video font, it's bold. We could expand this out. We could change the presets. We can save presets in here as well. So we don't have to create everything from scratch all the time. We could come down here, we could add a background, and we can then customize up what that looks like as well. And we'll change the color here to something more like a Primal video color. That's looking pretty close. From here, we can scale it down. Let's drop it down off to the side here. And if we hit play on this now, it's now gonna pop up and then disappear at that point. Now we can stretch this out if we want it on screen for longer. We can shorten it. Again, we can pick it up, we can move it around. I just love how simple and fast this stuff is in here. So you're gonna go through now, add in any titles or text to your video. So now that we've got a little bit going on down here, there's a couple of extra tools that I wanna run you through. So if we select this text box here, you can see there's this little line down to our main clip. This means that those two are linked, meaning that if I pick up this clip and go to move it around, the text or stickers are going to be linked to it. Now, you don't have to have that as the case. We can disable linking up here. And then if I pick this up, then those two are separate. So I love that they've got this built in. This is something that I loved about Final Cut and having that magnetic timeline. We can also turn on or off auto snapping. So if I pick up this clip now and go to move it up here, you can see it's gonna snap to that place. If I want more control over that, I can turn off snapping here, and then you can see I can really position this wherever I want it without that snapping happening. I personally like to leave that one on. And the last one here is track magnet. So I can see if I pick this up now with the magnet on, if I dropped it over here, the magnet's gonna suck it back to the left so that we don't have any gaps in our timeline. Now that is handy, but there's definitely times where you would want it off. So to turn that off, we can turn off our magnet there. Now we can position clips anywhere that we want. Again, super powerful that this stuff is built in. Next up, we're going to add in any effects or transitions onto our video. So if I come up here to transitions, now this is something that again, CapCut's got a ton of presets in here for you. Some of these are very basic and could cheapen the look of your video, but some of the other ones in here are pretty cool and could help you get more creative with your edits. So the way these work is that you drop them in between different clips here in your timeline. So let's grab this one here, flashes. Let's drag it down onto our clip here, onto the join between them. And if we play this now, we've now got this transition that happens. So it's really easy to drag and drop those down to your timeline. But typically, if I had a video like this, like one of our regular YouTube videos, I wouldn't add a transition here if both of the shots are the same. So I'm gonna come up here and hit undo to remove that transition. And instead, what I would do between these two shots here is I would zoom in or punch in on one of them to create a zoom cut, just so they looked a little bit different. So I'm gonna pick this clip here. I'm gonna come up the top here to video, and I'm just gonna scale this up a little bit. Now, depending on how you've shot this and your camera quality and everything, you really don't wanna go too far with this because you could be losing a little bit of quality. Let's just get it to 110. So I've zoomed in 10%. And now let's take a look at this cut. So it's just a little bit of a zoom in to make this shot feel like a little bit different, make it feel like it was even shot with a second camera. Now, in order to really sell this effect too, you wanna try and match the eye position in both the shots. So let's come back here to this clip. Now we can either click and drag down on this window, or we can use the tools over here to adjust it manually. Let's just see if that's a bit closer now. Okay, so it's pretty subtle, but it breaks it up for your viewers. So instead of using transitions, this is typically what we'd use in our YouTube videos. So once you've gone through and added transitions to your edit, you then want to apply any effects. So under effects, again, there is an absolute ton in here, everything from this rebound spring effect to a ripple, to an old vintage look, to adding lightning. And if we scroll down here, you can just see there's so many different things in here. So depending on the video you're making, some of these things could be really helpful or they could be really distracting for your viewers. But again, it's just a matter of selecting what you want, dragging it down into your timeline, and that effect has been applied. But the other area in terms of effects is if we select a video clip here in our timeline and come up the top here, then we can stabilize our video. So if it's shaky footage and we want to stabilize it, you've got that here. If we want to adjust the speed and speed it up or slow it down, then we've got speed controls in here. Or if we come across to animation, then we can apply some simple animations to our clips too. So if we go to spin up to here, this is what that looks like. So you could treat these as transitions too, and you get to choose if they're going to happen when the clip plays, so at the start of the clip on the in, or if it happens at the end, or you can actually have it as a combo, like this one here, pendulum one, or zoom one, or this zoom and rotate one. But you can see that some of these here, they're not actually that bad, and they could help you create something pretty creative. I'm just gonna come back up and hit none. We've also got a motion tracking effect in here and all of your color and audio adjustments in here as well. Once you've added your transitions and effects, next up we're gonna add in our audio. So if we wanna come back over here to audio, there is a bunch of music that is built here into CapCut, but a lot of it is copyright music, which you can actually legally only use on TikTok. So I would strongly advise that you use your own music or use music that you have the licenses to use. And this is where we're getting our music from Epidemic Sound and from Artlist, because we know we're covered with those licenses. So instead of using the music and the sound effects in here, I'm going to go back over to media. I'm going to import our music tracks. And again, to bring it down, we can just click on it, drag it down into our timeline, and let's go below our primary video track onto its own separate layer. Now, just like our regular clips, we can pick this up, we can move it around, we can trim off the start, we can trim off the end if we need to. So say in this case, our music goes much longer than our video, we can zoom out, we can grab the end, shorten it down so that they match. Now, when you're adding your music in, it's a good idea to play back through your video. You might find that you're making minor edits to things, adjusting the timing, adjust where the cuts are, all so that it matches the overall feel that you're going for. Now from here, we're going to adjust all of the volume levels. And if you're creating a video like this, where you've got someone speaking or you've got a narration, I would suggest that you're getting that volume level set right first, and then adjusting your music or your sound effects second. So for right now, I'm going to click this little button here to mute our music. We've already muted our top layer here, our B-roll clips. So if we come back to the start now and hit this little button here, then this is going to bring up our audio bars so that we can see how loud or quiet our audio is. So if we hit play, we're going to see that these bars light up, and we can see that our volume is going all the way up into the green, but it's not hitting the 0 or going into the red area. If our volume is too loud and it's going above 0 or close to 0, then it's going to be distorting and it's going to sound really bad. So you want to make sure that your audio stays just below that 0 mark. And to do this, we can select a clip. We can come up the top here to audio, and we can adjust this slider up and down to adjust the volume levels. The other way that we can do it is on the clip itself. You can see that there is this faint white line that appears when you put your mouse over it. If we lift that up, that's going to boost the volume. If we pull it down, that's going to lower the volume. So go ahead and make any adjustments to your audio as you need to, and then we're going to do the same with our music. So we're going to unmute our music track, and this piece here is really personal preference. It's creative. There's no right or wrong here. It's going to come down to the music track, and it's going to come down to the vibe of the video you're creating. But as a general rule, what we find for music is we normally start around -25 to -30, somewhere in there. As a good starting point, we'll then play back the video, see what it sounds like, and make adjustments from there. Now, CapCut does have some more advanced controls for audio in here as well, where we can use keyframes to manually adjust the volume levels throughout a clip. So let's just say, for instance, that we wanted the start of the music track here a little bit louder, and then as it progresses in, it drops down a little bit. We could use keyframes to do that. So I'm gonna bring this volume slider back up here. So we're gonna increase the volume level. Let's say that we wanted around -17 at the start. I'm gonna hit this little keyframe button here next to volume, and you can see we've got a little keyframe that's appeared in our timeline down here. I'm then going to find the place where we want the volume to go lower, let's say around here. I'm going to hit that little keyframe button again, and then I'm going to come across just a little bit further, hit that keyframe button one more time, but I'm now going to lower the volume to where I want it to be. So back to that -27, 28, somewhere around there. So if we zoom in on this timeline here now, we can see we've got our volume starting at this point and going along continuously. At that second keyframe marker, it starts to lower until it gets to the third keyframe marker, and that's now where it's set for the rest of the clip. And at any time we can grab these keyframe markers, we can move them up and down without needing to come back up here to all the settings. Another thing I want to point out here is if you do have a lot of background noise in your video clips, you can select your clips, come up here to audio, and there is a built-in noise reduction tool in here, which will take a lot of that out for you. Now that we have all our volume levels sorted, the next step is to adjust the colors in our videos. Now for this, again, CapCut has a lot of preset filters, they call it. Think of these like Instagram filters that you can apply to your video. So straight out, if you find something in here that you like, then that would be a great starting point. You can just drag that effect down onto your clips and you're good to go. Now, instead of manually applying an effect to each and every one of your clips, you can also apply an effect to your timeline itself, like an adjustment layer. So you can see now, just dragging this to the timeline, it's its own clip. But essentially what it's doing is it's applying this filter, this effect, to every clip that's underneath it. So if I stretch this out now, then all of these clips under here are really gonna have that effect applied. And the ones that aren't underneath it aren't applied. But again, we're not just limited to these filters. If I select on this and press delete, so we're gonna remove it, we can actually create our own effects or make minor adjustments, either by clicking on an individual clip and coming up to adjustments. And we've got a bunch of tools in here and lookup tables that we can apply to our video to dial in the look and feel that we're after. So we can either do it here on a clip by clip basis, or if I undo this now, if we come up the top here to adjustment, and we grab a color adjustment and drop it down into our timeline, we still get access to those exact same tools over here, but just like the filters, it's treated as an adjustment layer. So we could then stretch this out across our entire project. We could make the adjustments that we need. So we might make it a little bit more blue. We might boost the saturation here, adjust the brightness. And again, that's applied to all the clips beneath that filter. So we have a before and after. So in this case, we just drag this out then across our entire video, and that grade is now applied. So now that your color grade is done, if you do want to add captions into your videos, there is a really powerful auto captioning tool built in here to CapCut too. So you just want to come up the top here to text. Again, let's make sure that we're back at the start of our video. We can then go to auto captions and we can hit create. That's going to go through, it's going to analyze our video. It's going to listen to what's been said in it, and it's going to automatically type out captions for us. So that's done now. We can see we've got all of our text here across the bottom. We can then customize this up as we did with our titles. You can see with all of these selected here, we've got access to the same tools up here in terms of styling, fonts, colors. So I think it's awesome if this is built in here, especially if you're going to be creating different versions of your video. So you want to convert your YouTube video over to a short version for Instagram or for shorts or for reels, then it's super easy to add captions for those types of videos too. Now that our video is done, we want to export it. So you want to come up to the top here to export. We can give our video a name, Justin Edit. We can choose where we're going to save our file to. We can then customize up our settings here. Again, these were set from our primary footage, the first video clip that we brought into our timeline. So for most people, these settings should be pretty good. But if you needed to, you can adjust your resolution, you can adjust your bitrate either to a preset lower or higher, or you can actually manually type in a bitrate in here too. You can adjust your codecs, your frame rate, or you can even just export an MP3 if you wanted to save out your video as a podcast as well. But again, I'd imagine for most people, just the default settings here are going to be everything that you want. All you need to do then is hit export and your video will save out. Now, if you want to learn how to edit faster and more efficiently, then grab our free PDF guide, which is linked on screen, taking you through the ultimate video editing process to help you minimize any wasted time in rework in the way that you're approaching your editing. So don't forget to grab your free copy, and I will see you in the next one.